But that being said, our next speaker is someone who is extremely committed to innovation and diplomacy. And this afternoon, we in fact have the presence of Mr. Mahaveer Singhvi, Joint Secretary, New Emerging and Strategic Technologies Division, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. So firstly, thank you very much, sir, for joining us at the Global Fintech Fest 2025. And on that note, I'd like to please invite you to come on stage and share your thoughts with regard to building bridges for inclusive global growth. For all the ones who are seated, I know I can see limited audience, but can we have an unlimited round of applause, everyone? Can we bring the energy back in the air? Thank you so much. Please help me welcome Mr. Mahaveer Singhvi.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dignitaries, and the guests here from across the world, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. I know it's very difficult to speak after the minister herself has spoken about a revolution which we are witnessing in the country. That's the Fintech revolution. But I would give my thoughts on that. But let me first thank the organizers of this, what I would call as a Mahakumbh of Fintech, for inviting me to speak before such a distinguished gathering. It is truly both an honor and a privilege to stand before you at the Global Fintech Festival 2025 in Mumbai, a city long celebrated as India's financial capital and now rapidly emerging as the global fintech capital. As a representative of the Ministry of External Affairs and someone leading the New Emerging and Strategic Technologies Division, which has proudly supported this festival, I must say that the theme of this session, Fintech Diplomacy, Building Bridges for Inclusive Global Growth, could not be more timely or relevant in today's world. Friends, we often ask, how has technology changed finance? You have heard in the session that how AI, the quantum technologies are going to change the financial world. If you ask me, and to my mind, I think technology has not merely changed the finance, it has completely redefined it. Finance today is not simply powered by technology. It is shaped, scaled, and democratized by it. From digital payments to blockchain, from microloans to AI-driven credit sourcing, all you have heard in the previous session, I think the technology has turned finance into something more personal and more participatory. Yet, amid this transformation, one must pause to ask, is Fintech truly inclusive? Are we building systems that empower everyone, from a young coder in Bengaluru to a small farmer in Africa? Are we unintentionally leaving many behind? The way we answer that question will determine whether Fintech becomes merely an engine of profit or a bridge to shape the shared prosperity. And when we look for answers, we do not have to look far. India's own journey provides one of the most compelling examples of inclusive innovations anywhere in the world. In just a decade, India has built one of the most robust digital financial ecosystem on the planet, the India Stack, as you all know, anchored by UPI, Aadhaar, DigiLocker, and the account aggregator framework. And now consider these numbers. Over 500 million Indians now make digital payments every month. Maybe the numbers may be more. In August 2025, the UPI processed over 20 billion transactions worth nearly 25 lakh crores. Maybe it might be even more now. And these are not just statistics, ladies and gentlemen. They are the signature of a quiet, peaceful revolution that has brought financial inclusion to every corner of the vast and diverse country as India. But what lies behind those numbers? We need to ask ourselves. Every QR code posted at a roadside tea stall, every remittance sent home by a migrant worker, every microloan disbursed to a women entrepreneur, each of these tells a story of empowerment. And to my mind, this transformation did not happen by accident. It was the outcome of a clear vision, deliberate policy, and coordinated partnerships. Public policy created the foundation. Startups and innovation built on it. Banks and regulators ensured stability and trust. Inclusion became not a byproduct of growth, but its very purpose. And that, I think, is what makes India's fintech revolution so unique. It is not about technology alone. It is about social transformation through innovation, and that's what is very important and matters. Now that India stands tall as a global financial leader, another question naturally arises. How do we take this success beyond our borders? How can our experience help others leapfrog towards a more inclusive digital future? I believe the answer lies in what we call fintech diplomacy, the use of technology, trust, and partnerships to connect economies and promote inclusions across nations. To my mind, fintech diplomacy represents the next frontier of international cooperation, one that blends finance, innovation, and development in a seamless, mutually beneficial way. So, what does fintech diplomacy look like in practice? Let me paint a picture. Imagine a mother in Kerala receiving instant remittances from her son working in Saudi Arabia or in any other Gulf country through linked payment systems. Picture a small business in Nairobi selling handicraft products to buyers in Delhi. Through interoperable cross-border payment rails, or think of a student in Colombo paying tuition for an Indian online course in seconds using a trusted digital interface. That, friends, is fintech diplomacy at work, connecting lives, empowering communities, and fostering inclusion in a way that trade alone never could do. So who then can lead this transformation? And I think answer is quite clear. Only a country that has deployed digital public infrastructure at population scale. And that you all know, ladies and gentlemen, the country is India. Our approach to fintech diplomacy rests on three enduring pillars: partnerships, policy, and purpose. All these three things are very important. Partnerships, because innovation thrives on collaboration and not in isolation. Policy, because technology without regulatory trust can destabilize more than it empowers. And purpose, because technology without human benefit is just machinery. And together, I think these pillars define India's vision of building digital bridges for inclusive growth. And indeed, India is already putting this diplomacy into practice. Over the past few years, as you all know, India has shared its digital public infrastructure, DPI, as we know, that DPI model with several nations across the world, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And many of these countries are now building UPI-like payment systems, digital identity frameworks, and interoperable financial network with India's technical and policy support. And in doing so, India is not just exporting technology. It is exporting confidence, capacity, and inclusion. All these three things are very important. And to my mind, that is the true diplomacy, not transactional, but transformational, and that is what matters. When we share open source code, we also share trust. When we export digital frameworks, we export dignity. And this is how Atmanirbhar Bharat and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is self-reliance and the world as one family, complement each other in the digital age. Now let me ask another question. Can fintech itself become a tool for peace, prosperity, and partnerships, much like trade once was? And I strongly believe it can. When we interlink payment systems across borders, we connect not just banks, but people. Take, for instance, linkages between India's UPI and Singapore's Pay Now, a real-time, low-cost, and inclusive bridge between two nations. Similar partnerships with several other countries are now happening and has happened, such as countries such as UAE, Mauritius, France, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and so on. And now imagine a world where money moves across countries as seamlessly as a text message over the internet, where financial inclusion transcends geography and language. That, I believe, is the world fintech diplomacy is trying to build. And a step in that direction you've just seen was launched. But as we often open these bridges, complex questions naturally emerges. Who governs cross-border data flows? How do we secure transactions across jurisdictions? How do we regulate blockchain, AI-driven credit scoring, and decentralized finance in a globally coherent manner? These are not merely technical questions. They are the questions of governance, sovereignty, and trust. And that is why India has been a strong voice in global standard settings and coordination, from G20 to multilateral institutions like IMF and the World Bank, advocating frameworks that balance innovation with stability, competition with consumer protection, and speed with safety. All these things are very important, and that is what we are advocating. And at the heart of all of this, friends, lies one critical element, that is trust. In this borderless digital world, trust has truly become the new currency. But how do we build trust in a system that are invisible and instantaneous? To my mind, trust today must be designed into technology, embedded in regulation, and guided by ethics. India's model of fintech trust rests on a triad of technological assurance, legal protection, and ethical commitment. Again, very important elements. And when we share India's tech or UPI with partners abroad, we also share governance frameworks, consent architecture, and data privacy. Data privacy principles, all these things are very important. And in that sense, I would like to say that India is not merely exporting technology, it is also exporting trust infrastructure, and that is very crucial. And that brings me to a larger reflection. What is the ultimate purpose of all this technology and diplomacy? Diplomacy, after all, is about people, not platforms. And the real test of fintech, to my mind, is not how complex it becomes, but how simple and accessible it remains for those who need it the most. The street vendor scanning a QR code, as you all know, the farmer availing micro-insurance, or the homemaker managing savings on a phone, all these things are happening. And these are the true faces of fintech that has transformed our lives. If we can imagine a future where such empowerment reaches every person in every country, then that, friends, ladies and gentlemen, would be the true success of fintech diplomacy. And yet, despite all these progress, I think one thing is very important. The world still has a long way to go. Even today, almost 1.3 to 1.4 billion adults or the people remain unbanked or underbanked. I think the World Bank's Global Fintechs report says that 79% of adults globally now have access to formal financial services, which is up from 51% in 2011. But that still leaves hundreds of millions outside the systems. And each of them represent not just an economic statistic, but a human dream. So we need to bring them into the fold through affordable remittances, mobile banking, and simplified KYC, And this is not just an act of economic development, it is also an act of human empathy. And empathy to mind must remain the moral compass of fintech diplomacy. That is very, very important. If we lose that, if we leave that behind, I think we are not serving the purpose for which we are all here today. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, India's voice resonates powerfully here because we understand this journey. We have seen this journey from scarcity to scale, from exclusion to empowerment. And now, through South-South cooperation, India has helped nations in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America to build their own digital ecosystem, offering technology, training, capacity building, technical expertise, without creating any dependency. And this is the essence of our diplomacy, enabling others to grow, not to rely, empowering them to innovate and not to imitate. It is this model of partnerships without paternalism that makes India's fintech diplomacy both ethical and effective, and that is what we need to do in future as well. Let me now come to another important dimension, the future of global collaboration in fintech. As digital economies expand, nations must work together to establish interoperable standards, shared safeguards, and trusted governance frameworks. India's initiatives under the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion and its leadership in the Digital Public Infrastructure DPI discussions during the G20 presidency have already paved the way for this dialogue. And we have seen getting this embedded into the various declarations which came out. Now is the time to take this vision forward to institutionalize global cooperation that make fintech a tool for inclusion and not division. I think we all must work towards this goal. I would like to emphasize that fintech diplomacy is not just government-to-government engagement. It is also about industry-to-industry, startups to startups, and people-to-people collaboration. India's fintech companies are already partnering globally. We are a part of all of that. From providing payments and identity solutions in the global south to co-developing new regulatory sandboxes and AI tools for credit inclusion in the global north. And this multi-stakeholder model where government provides vision, industry provides innovation, and academia provides insight is, to my mind, the most sustainable approach to scaling fintech diplomacy. So friends, as we look ahead, one thing is certain. The world is going to need more fintech diplomacy and not less. As economies become digitally intertwined, shared guardrails and shared trust will be essential. India, with its scale, democratic ethos, and development experience, is uniquely positioned to act as a connector between innovation and inclusion, between North and the South, and between technology and trust. So, friends, we are no longer just participants in this revolution. We are the co-authors of its global narrative. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is both our opportunity and our responsibility. So as we gather here in Mumbai, a city where finance meets future, let me leave you with one final question and a thought. When history looks back, will it say that fintech made the world wiser or richer, or that it made the world fairer? The answer, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, lies in the choices today which we are going to make in how we collaborate, regulate, and innovate. Let us build those bridges of trust, technology, and togetherness so that this fintech revolutions become a global movement for inclusion. The world is watching India, ladies and gentlemen, and together we can ensure it learns from us, partner with us, and grow with us. Thank you very much for listening to me. Jai Hind.